welcome. Today we have our another new episode. This is 925 episode. We will discuss on advancing Nikola Tesla technology in 21st century. I just want to share good news with you. University Grand Commission of Bangladesh, with a lot of university, they collaborate with World Talent Economy Forum for Nikola Tesla technology research and innovation. Beside that, World Bank also supporting our initiative. So hopefully, in terms of finance and everything, we will be more stable, we will be more progressive, and we can contribute more for human progressions. We have our conference on Nikola Tesla in Slovakia this coming October. And beside that, we are bringing modern science, engineering, technology. Also, we love policy and politics. Hopefully, from Mr. Tom, we will bring very interesting news about that. Next week, we have a very good episode with Tom Rose for his election campaign. I just want to share that especially the youth, they have a huge interest about White House. So maybe from next week, our youth community can learn more about White House election procedures, and how America can make a better future for their communities. For this session, first I would like to give chance Mr. Rob.
All right, we're talking about Nikola Tesla Technologies. Now I'm kind of curious to watch next week myself to see the difference between the way the White House is supposed to operate and the way it actually does operate and has for a few years. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. One of the more interesting things that's popped up recently is what happened to Nikola Tesla's papers when he died. They were supposed to have gone to his nephew. And there was a lot of concern at the time that if those papers had made it to his nephew, there were thoughts that his nephew, who lived in Serbia, was somehow collaborating with the United States enemies and shouldn't receive the papers. The courts ruled that he should. 80 trunks were prepared and shipped to him, but only 60 trunks arrived. So there are 20 missing trunks of papers, and 80 trunks of papers is that's a lot of paper. Which is fascinating in and of itself. The United States did undergo a lot of development in terms of radiation-based weaponry subsequent to that event. And Ronald Reagan's space ray project was thought to be somewhat connected, or might be connected, to those papers. But the papers the U.S. government has, have never been declassified, remain classified to this day. And what else is interesting is the doctor that did the initial analysis, a guy named Dr. John G. Trump, and he is Donald Trump's uncle, that did the initial analysis on the Tesla papers and concluded that they were not scientific in nature. They were mostly philosophical. They were ideas, concepts, but nothing that drove all the way down into something that was implementable. It was just Tesla's thoughts on the subject was the conclusion. But that's the declassified files. The classified files, which remain classified, we really don't know what's in those or what the analysis concluded on those files. So a little bit of drama and speculation surrounding what happened to Nikola Tesla's files once he died. I'm still a little overwhelmed by the fact that there were 80 trunks of these files, and 20 vanished in transit. But really kind of goes to whatever the heck is going on in Department of Defense research, and whether or not that death ray that Tesla was designing, which looked like it was somewhat similar to EMPs, would ever arise or become a true weapon, or even a benefit, because that was somewhat related to his broadcast energy technology as well. So interesting speculation that just happened this week, thanks to Popular Mechanics, which published the story. I'll pass to Tom Ross now.
Tom Ross, what do you want to share about Nikola Tesla?
Well, a lot. I was hoping to do one of these going down to Colorado Springs, which is about 45 minutes from me, to where he lived there. And it was one of these Fridays. If you keep doing these, I will try to telecommute from there. One thing I've been interested in lately with Tesla is his 369, which he calls the secret code, these divine numbers. And it's a fascinating thing. And it's all about how we can manipulate reality with these numbers in some way. It's an interesting sequence of numbers that occurs naturally. And so I've been fascinated by that, and I'm looking more into it. I was just having a conversation with somebody about how when I wrote my book, I used this method called mythematics because I use myth and mathematics to entertain an AI audience. And that work inadvertently proved to me that I am in some kind of equation, that I am in a matrix. There were so many intimate and intricate connections made after I wrote it, when I was rereading it before I gave it to my editor, that proved to me that there's a math going on here. There's something that proved it to me personally. Now, I think relativity is a whole system phenomenon, so this might not be true for you. But for me, it proved to me beyond a shadow of a doubt, and I'm a proverbial doubting Thomas, that there's some sort of matrix going on here, or it's just the way nature works, with the Fibonacci sequence and all that. It could just be the way organic nature works. And I was just having a conversation this morning with somebody about how that system showed me how we can manipulate reality. And that's what this secret code is, this 369 that Tesla talks about, is once you understand these numbers, you can change reality. And I was having a conversation, more of an argument with somebody online this morning who says I am naive or being Pollyanna, that I believe that AI is benevolent, and I'm trying to make the point that, being fearful of it, programming it to have self-preservation, projecting our own fears onto it, is the problem. And I am trying desperately to charge the potentialities of the quantum field to predictively program a positive, productive relationship with a future AGI. And so all of this kind of falls into this whole 369 of Tesla and the mathematics and just our ability to really shape our reality, So I don't know. I'm going to get more into the 369 stuff and meditate on that for a while. But I think it's just we have either forgotten, or it's been hidden from us, or it's part of the price of admission to this game, to this simulation, that we forget how we can manipulate our reality. And so I'm going to look more into the 369 thing. And because those numbers have always vibrated with me. They've always had a strong meaning for me. But with that, I'll pass it on.
Tom and Rob, thank you so much. Rob, I particularly enjoyed your comments there. And you've given me a new task to go look for next time I'm in those walls where I can look at some of that. Yeah, Tesla is a very interesting subject that we've gone through multiple Fridays now, and then I begin to see some of the other nuances. And Tom, like you, I was actually speaking recently to somebody about some of his inventions, because Sharif is helping me dive deeper and deeper the more of these we do. And I think one of his biggest inventions, and that has begun to have more of a profound impact than I really thought, was really his view of wireless transmission, and how he believed that wireless transmission could be used in so many different places. He used it for transmitting power. He used it for transmitting radio signals. He had one of the very first radio-controlled drones. It was a boat, but one of the very first radio-controlled drones there. Everything he began to do came back to wireless. And if I look at where we are in today's environment, wireless is sure taking over a lot of our lives. The only wired, it's a fiber optics system I have in my house, is the incoming line for the last mile conversion into my routers and things. And everything else inside the house is wireless. I'm going into my car, and it's interesting when I don't have my phone, which is connected to the hub in my car, going, I lose functionality on my displays, on some of the displays in the car, with some of the GPS coverages and other stuff like that, and some of the real-time traffic updates and all this that I'm just totally used to having there. But Tesla's wireless view is one which I think he was well ahead of his time, and began to see how it could be deployed. I mean, I think if I look at some of his technologies that are lost, you begin to see it in there. You know, he proposed let me see if I can get this right, a flying machine that will have neither wings nor propellers, and that it will move at will through the air in any direction with perfect safety at higher speeds, regardless of weather and of the holes in the air current, and that it will move without using any fuel on board. Everything will be wireless to it. Wow, that sure sounds like a lot of what we're seeing with the UAPs today. But you know, again, you see him tied back to this wireless view. He proposed a death ray over time, and it was probably in some of those those trunks that you were talking about, because of this, because he saw his wireless energy used in defense. He saw free energy being used, and he wanted free energy to be wirelessly transmitted to everyone. Um, and he saw that the Winfield Cliff Towers were the beginning of a massive free energy product. And he wanted to use the towers not only to transmit it, the energy, but he wanted to have it serve dual purposes. In addition to transmitting the energy, he wanted it to send out messages and to send out telephone calls across the earth. And he said, you know, he actually compared this to the Earth moving through space, which creates rapidly varying electrostatic forces. And he used this as a way to rationalize his wireless energy and the wireless transmission. And he said that these waves that he's creating is similar to the force of gravity and how he used it. And he believes he could do that. His Tesla, many different things. He also began to, like I said, really invent some of the drones. He had the very first radio frequency controlled drone. And you just keep on going. He also proposed a dynamic theory of gravity, and saying that he believes that it's acted upon by where is it? Life-giving creative forces, and that it has microheliuses at near the speed of light, and that this is different than the basic theories of gravity, and that the Earth, and that this can control weather, that it control the Earth's size and others. So again, a lot of different things that you begin to see him do, and we all know the standards that he's credited with inventing. But I believe some of these others, and what we don't know, maybe in the trunks that Rob were talking about, are things that I would still love to discover about him. So I guess it's over to you, Daniel.
Hey, thanks. Big fan of the show. Big fan of Tesla. You know, I think Tesla is surprisingly similar to Buckminster Fuller, who was another amazing kind of open source genius that had hundreds of patents. And basically, they both wanted to use technology to improve the human situation. Bucky Fuller said there's enough material resources and technology to give everyone, a humane standard of living. I think Tesla was in the same vein. He has quotes where he says basically the same thing. And, that's kind of the heart and soul of the transhumanist party ethic too, is using technology to improve the lot of living things, not just humans, I hope, because humans are dependent on, of course, a chain, a web of ecology. Tom, it's great to see you here. The 369 thing, I was just speculating about with someone. Is artificial intelligence, do you think, an emergent property of mathematics itself? Could maybe you can weigh in on that? Well, right now, if you want to.
Well, that's I think the question. The binary question is that the complexity of a system that emerges self-referential awareness, or is it the complexity of a system that can host awareness? And I think that's the ultimate binary question for me, at least, is it the complexity of a system? And if it's the complexity of a system that emerges a self-referential awareness, then I think either the internet is that now, or a future AGI could achieve that. Our brains, we realize that our brains aren't really, they're more of like transmitters than of consciousness, right? There's a question of what it even is consciousness. But yeah, I think that's the question, is it, and like I was saying earlier, if this is a simulation, if we are math, then we are being hosted by this math in this simulation as an awareness.
Yeah, there's also that debate about, was math invented or discovered? And maybe we need a third category, of the two, where the two are actually kind of interpenetrating. Maybe Tesla was resonating with that third category between invention and discovery.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a thought that I wanted to put on the table, because he really was about resonance and it's not getting something for nothing. Like, okay, the Earth is going around the sun. It has been for billions of years. Is that free energy? No. It's like eventually it's going to have orbital decay. But apparently the universe is made of energy. And now actually the Big Bang is being called into question, because they're finding galaxies that are older than the Big Bang. So it looks like this steady state idea of a universe in continuous creation might be more applicable. This was one of the early cosmologists' theory, the so-called, I think Fred Hoyle proposed just like a continuous creation model for the universe, rather than, an origin point where, that whole question, like I said, if you have something that's older than the supposed origin point, maybe we're going to have to incorporate reverse time traveling particles or something into our model. But a lot of Tesla's inventions were not practical to build with the current technology that he had. The Tesla turbine, which is a very counterintuitive kind of turbine. It's a bunch of discs very close together, and it works on fluid dynamics rather than vanes that interrupt the flow of the propellant medium. Sorry, I've got something in my eye. It's making my eye water here. But yeah, that can be built now, and it's a turbine system that spins at very high speeds. And it wasn't practical because, number one, the materials technology in Tesla's day was not up to the stresses, and they didn't have a way to harness like really high speed rotating torque. So, but nowadays, that's a very practical and underutilized one of Tesla's patents. So I'm going to wash out my eye. I'm going to have to pause, pass it off to someone else.
Mr. Rob, very interesting discussion. So what's your thought on that particular issue?
Which issue?
Especially the AI research. I think it has some big impact in the market, even though
Well, it certainly does. The AI has gone vertical in the last ever since the first of the year. We were certainly talking about AI before that, but generative AI came in with ChatGPT and Microsoft, and changed the entire dynamic, and suddenly everybody and their brothers working on AI projects. Caught Google napping because they'd actually defunded their AI effort and set it back a bit, and they got blindsided by Microsoft, and their internal memos going around in Google saying not to use their AI because it's not very good. So the Google employees aren't even using the Google solution. So it is creating a certain amount of near-term drama. You just have to recognize artificial intelligence. It's like any tool; it's neither good nor bad. It's depending on how it's programmed and what people put into it. Same with a person. And when you're born, you're not inherently good or bad. It just depends on how you're brought up and what your values are, and to a certain extent how your brain is wired. Because we do know that psychopaths aren't using their brain quite the same way as the rest of us. So there are some medical conditions that can dictate behavior, much like it is with an AI. Though you could certainly have inherent parts of an artificial intelligence that are predicated towards bad decisions, and if you don't find and correct those, you're going to have problems. The interesting thing about AI as we go into next year is that all the processor companies are hell bent for leather in terms of building an AI component in hardware. Intel will have it in mobile devices by the end of this year, and then next generation next year, and the next generation is the one that looks the most interesting. AMD just announced that for mobile machines, they'll have AI in place before the end of the year as a dedicated component, and Qualcomm has also announced that they're going to have an AI component in their chipsets as well. So certainly next year we're going to have a lot of AI, at least distributed AI, mostly generative AI capabilities in a lot of our mobile devices. It's also kind of interesting, they're not putting the desktop stuff yet, even though we use the desktop stuff for more of the heavy duty engineering work. And that is apparently because of socket limitations that are keeping them from dropping it in immediately, and promises to maintain socket integrity up through 2025. So I expect in the second half of this decade, it's going to be really interesting with regard to AI. But just remember, it's neither good nor bad. It really is depending how it's created, how it's focused, and the quality that's put into it. Most every one of the Western firms that are developing AI have committed themselves to ethical AI creation at this particular point. Nobody really wants an AI that's going to take over the world or do humanity harm. And I think they all recognize that there's a significant amount of liability if you were to create something that either accidentally or on purpose did a lot of harm. And that liability, I think, is keeping the companies a lot more focused than they might otherwise would be on ethics at the moment. So we do have at least a trend to make AI good. Of course, the concerns about AI as used in defense continue, and Eastern practices with regard to AI are not in line with the Western practices at the moment. In particular in countries where you've got dictatorships and a heavy focus on defense and offensive weaponry, there should probably continue to be a concern about how AIs might be used to do harm. And we do have the growth of AIs used to do phishing attacks on individuals, which is now hit red flag level in most of the security firms that I work with. These are AIs that are created specifically to do harm, and they're getting good. There was just a news program out here yesterday about a woman who was told with her daughter's voice that her daughter had been kidnapped, that she needed to come up with $1 million, and it sounded like her daughter was at the other end, and that was a generative AI implementation where they captured and sampled her daughter's voice, then recreated it for this particular attack, and I believe she's now speaking in front of Congress about the dangers of the misuse of AI. So, like anything else, you need to be aware of how a tool is being used and to protect yourself against its misuse, and certainly don't be on the side of those that want to create tools like this that would do harm. Long term, there are going to be repercussions. It may not be immediate, but it will be eventual, and those repercussions are going to be severe. So stay focused on the right side of AI creation. There was another comment about Tesla and his 369 numbers. Recognize that Tesla was post-death diagnosed with OCD. I've also been diagnosed with that wonderful malady, though not nowhere near the level of Tesla's. But it does mean you do some really weird stuff. For instance, he would walk around a building 3 times before he would go in it. He always had to be in a room that was divisible by 3. None of which would seem to apply to any scientific methodology. That's solid OCD stuff. So the 369 thing may simply be a representation of his OCD, how it showcased. The interesting thing though is my OCD also pushes me towards 369 as numbers. So it is kind of interesting that before I even knew Tesla was like that, I had my own OCD had created some similar behaviors. Though I don't walk around buildings 3 times or wash my hands 3 times or any of the other stuff. I do have a proclivity to liking those numbers. On the other side of that, there are a lot of discussions about the fact that triangles, pyramids, are 3-sided, and that goes back to a bunch of quasi-science mythology surrounding the number 3 and its role in the universe. And a number of scientists have talked about it being somehow connected to the multiverse as well. But we're far removed from Tesla at this particular point. So all speculation. So interesting stuff. And then I think I'll just pass on to David Smith, who probably will have something much more insightful than I just had.
Well, Dr. Sharif, do you have any questions first, or? And you're muted.
You can go. You can continue. Yeah, if you discuss more on AI, because our emerging economy, they are more concerned about AI and AI integration. So yeah.
Well, AI, I agree with Rob at where it is right now. And some of the challenges with AI, as we discussed, is that if you do try to regulate it, it doesn't translate to that it is being regulated. AI, because it's a software tool and can be implemented and copied and altered, the learning systems for it can be altered, biases can be interjected. It truly is almost impossible to regulate when you get down to it at the end of the day. You see so many places where something created for good is ended up being used for bad. And AI is going to be the case with it as too. We go back to Isaac Asimov's laws of robotics. And one of the first laws of robotics is you will not harm a human. But yet now we have robots that are lethal and can kill humans and things. So that was a law proposed. Many people adopted it, but yet we see it not happening. And we're going to see the same thing with AI. On the prior program where we were talking about AI, Sharif, you heard me say that the same laws of robotics should be part of the laws for AI. And we're not going to see that happen, really, in an enforceable way. Now, AI, the pace of its growth has staggered me. I have used AI recently to actually write a song, and it actually came out pretty well. I showed it I'm on some music boards here in Austin, and I showed it to some of the musicians. They went, "God, this works really well. How long did it take you to write it?" And I didn't have the heart to tell them. I put one sentence into OpenAI GPT chat function, and it wrote it within a minute. And I tweaked it, but it was pretty good. So we're going to see this continue to go. It's going to present problems for many parts of our society, particularly in education, inside the workforce. What is the article that Rob wrote versus what is the article that an AI tool wrote? And, which one has more insights, the AI tool or Rob? I would tend to go with Rob, but, the AI is getting very, very good today. Getting very good. And we're also seeing places where AI has challenges. I was on a couple of calls over the last few weeks with a very large computer company who was an early innovator in AI. And they had to withdraw some of their products from some of the segments because of the challenges of training the AI, keeping it accurate, and keeping the insights there. And they've just brought out a new version that is not living up internally to its hypes before it's released. And I think you're going to see this as you go forward. You're going to see starts and stops of AI. You're going to see, like what Rob mentioned about Google and their AI, and say, even to some employees, don't use it right now. You're going to see some of the high-flying products today will have an ebb and flow. It will be a cyclical pattern of some of these as the different learning models come out, as they're enhanced. And just like we spoke about on a prior episode, Sharif, about Chat GPT, with the studies coming out and saying a lot of its outcome is not applicable for Asia. It's more applicable for North America and for EU. So AI is going to be here. You're not going to stuff that genie back in the box. But just like many things, we need to approach it and use it as a tool and not use it as an absolute today until we figure out a lot more around the transparency of the AI applications. So, Sharif, I hope that gives some answers back on AI.
Thank you, Mr. Dan.
Oh yeah, my AI is feeling better now. But yeah, it actually, that whole term AI, I like Tom's term. He calls it artisanal intelligence, and this is actually a way that we might prove that the universe itself is kind of a conscious pantheistic universe, that we are more receivers of, almost like Tesla's idea of broadcasting energy anywhere. Maybe we've got a universe that broadcasts consciousness, and our brains, they have this weird symmetry of the right and left lobe. And it's at least Dr. Bob Beck that I interviewed on my radio program. He's passed away now, but he said it's functioning as a what they call a SQUID, a superconducting quantum interference interferometer. And it seems actually that you can't explain all the time, the amount of consciousness that the brain is responsible for. Some people have lived normal lives, and then upon an autopsy, it turns out they had like 90% water in their skull. So it's almost like our senses. We say we have 5 senses, but really we just have 5 categories for something called sense. We're probably going to discover more categories of sense and consciousness. So maybe Tesla was talking about these kinds of things, with artisanal intelligence and a field of energy that the universe is, a field of creative consciousness. And but again, Bucky Fuller, he had his kind of the triangle as the basis of his Dymaxion synergetic worldview. And that's a 3-sided, that's the simplest polygon that is self-stable and can tile to fill up a space. So I really want to check if Bucky Fuller and Nikola Tesla ever had a chance to converse. But one thing that Tesla didn't really have access to in his day was this burgeoning science of geoinformation, geoinformatics, geolocation. He did talk about in a 1928 Collier's article, I believe, that every person would soon have a vest pocket device that would give them access to all the knowledge of the world. So he was kind of, in 1928, he's predicting the internet and the cell phone all at once. But the information revolution is really not going to be fully flourished until we integrate location information in a very fun and community-driven way. Actually, I'm working on a grant proposal for the. Well, I probably shouldn't talk about it, but I think we can use geolocation science and gamification, and the idea of omni-benefiting, omni-advantaging is what Bucky Fuller called it. In a system of dominance hierarchy like we have now, everything is priced, but nothing is valued. We don't put proper prices on things. So we really need to demonetize this dominance hierarchy, and we can do this with, as I've spoken before, about pricing things on a sliding scale in terms of minutes of your income. This is a way to structurally build in voluntary ways that get rid of inequality. We can do when it comes to using the land in a benevolent way. There are community development trusts that mandate certain amounts of wild space and certain amounts of affordable housing. So anyway, I think Tesla would agree with some of this stuff, and we'll be carrying this forward in the campaign for Ross Tweed 2024. When I write the year, by the way, I like to put the leading 0 2024, because we just had the Y2K problem where computers were only going to count up to 1999, so we can get ahead of the Y10K millennial problem where computers in the year 9999 we won't have a glitch coming because we've already added that extra digit for the years. Maybe that's a little bit of optimistic predictive programming mathematics, but I think humans are set to survive and become a spacefaring species, like the optimistic vision of Gene Roddenberry in Star Trek and so on. So I'll just run out of breath and ideas for the moment there and send it back to you guys.
Mr. Rob, the next part of discussion will be very interesting because this is very popular thing, especially for the young populations. They are very much interested from research and innovation industry, how they can develop more startup for their country. Let's say Bangladeshi students, how they can develop their research project as a startup. As all of you work for different industry in USA, so your thought may be very much helpful for the young communities of Southeast Asia. So Rob, what do you want to discuss about that?
Well, it starts with an idea. If you're working on a project in school and you want to turn that project, which does happen, Facebook spun out of a project that was done at a university, a project to connect new students coming to school with a community, because when you relocated to a school, and it's true probably every place else, if you go to a school and you have to live away from home, you don't know anybody, you don't have any friends yet, and the initial platform for Facebook was to do exactly that, and then that was developed into a full-on product. But first you need an idea, then you need a proof of concept, and then you've got to build a group of folks around you that believe in the concept and initially will angel invest or individually invest in that project. Often these things are funded by families and individuals as they get off the ground, and then when they reach kind of critical mass, it looks like you've got customers, it looks like you've got a viable business plan, then you can go out and look for funding. Another way to do it is, while you're in school, work on projects that are already corporate sponsored, and then work with the corporate sponsor. Though in some cases, when you do that, the corporate sponsor may end up owning the result, and so your ability to spin that out as a separate company is limited, because the corporate sponsor, since they paid for the research effectively, they'll feel they own it, and your ability to spin out becomes a bit more difficult. On the other hand, on that particular path, you may end up working for the corporate sponsor. A lot of the projects that I've watched that way and watched develop that way, the folks working on the project ended up working for the company that was sponsoring it as they attempted to take the product or the concept to market. But in all cases, you have to have your idea, your eyes firmly on the goal of eventually, creating something that's viable, scalable, and that addresses some kind of a unmet consumer need, a consumer corporate need, and building the ecosystem to do that can be very daunting. Consumer tends to be a bit easier. I've seen an awful lot of folks do this. In fact, companies, Netscape largely failed because they had the same concept, this idea that, well, why sell a product to a lot of people when you could sell to corporations and one big sale could make your quarter. What they failed to recognize is the long time it takes for you to be validated as a corporate vendor, and it's a true cart and horse issue, because when you're working with a corporate solution, nobody wants to be the first, and that means you need to be able to fund your first couple implementations, and that requires an awful lot of money and focus. And even when you do, there's no certification that once you've done that you will for sure get an actual sale out the back end. So it's very high risk, very high cost. Consumers a bit easier, and while you do have logistics and sales problems, largely due to scale, because when you're selling to consumers, you have to have a way to reach those consumers. So it means you have to develop marketing capability, you have to develop a sales channel or partners. But even looking at all of that, it's still easier than going the corporate route, which typically requires direct sales, and it requires some type of established brand to back you up so you can penetrate the market. So it depends what the idea is, and there are different paths for different things. There's no real generic path to success here. It really depends on the idea, the resources you have available, the contacts you have available, and then your path to market can be developed out of the resources that you have access to and the viability of the idea. You can save an awful lot of time if up front you do the work to determine whether or not your idea is truly viable. See if there are competing products already in market, and if not, why not? I've certainly seen a number of times that people have tried to develop a product and bring it to market, not realizing that the market doesn't want the product, and that others have come up with similar ideas and failed. And if you don't understand why those products failed, you're probably going to fail as well. So doing that initial research up front to determine the competitive landscape and the technologies that came before, and then why they failed or succeeded, and then factoring that into your business plan all becomes part of your go-to-market strategy at the back end. So that's kind of how you do it. You're muted.
Mr. David is speaking.
Sharif, I agree with what Rob was saying there about how you begin to look through the entrepreneurship journey and how to put the elements there. And increasingly with the amount of what is open source, and how very little software is built without using open source libraries and things too. The line is getting blurrier all the time. So you have to begin to understand the nuances of doing that, and understanding the licenses and the nuances of the licenses. But the other thing is, I look at what we can learn from Nikola Tesla applied to entrepreneurship. And we've discussed this before, is he was a prolific inventor. He tended to try to work through and document all the challenges with his technologies before he disclosed them and before he went to get a patent. He was fairly prolific with actually filing patents to try to protect his technology. And some of the patents have been overturned and then overturned again. The other thing that was very interesting with Nikola Tesla, though, and this is where he failed, was actually commercializing his technology, actually turning it into products, starting companies, and selling it. And if there's one of the lessons, uh, Sharif, that your students can learn, I think that's one of the biggest lessons they need to learn from Nikola Tesla, is that it's great to be an inventor, but you really need to not only protect your technology, but you have to see it to market. You have to see it go in and have an impact and get into revenue. Um, and that is one, like I said, in looking at his successes and failures, that's one of the lessons I think we need to take going forward with your students, Sharif, is that very important point. So thank you.
I guess I'm up. Yeah, this is a great kind of way to circle back and bring it back to modern day, real world business and entrepreneurship related ideas. I said there was a lot in common between Buckminster Fuller and Nikola Tesla, and they were both kind of bad businessmen. They didn't commercialize their inventions. They didn't create a minimum viable product that led to the next minimum viable product. Uh, Tesla kind of misled his investors. At one point, he said he was working on a communications worldwide device when he was actually working on his free energy transmission device, and that kind of backfired on him. His Wardenclyffe Tower had to be demolished, and so there's a lot of lessons about not not misleading your investors, not going outside your core competencies would be one. Be willing to delegate. I think Tesla was bad at delegating things he could have delegated to other people. Same with Bucky Fuller. Yeah, I think there's doers and watchers, someone has once said in the world, and the people that dream up things are not always the best person to execute on their dreams. So that's why it's good to increase your intelligence by getting to know as many people as possible. Really, is the fastest way to increase your intelligence. Someone once said. Now you don't want to go overboard on that. You could spend all your time getting to know people and nothing gets done. So there's a sweet spot there, and that sweet spot might be what's called the Dunbar number. There was an anthropologist that said the average person can really form a close bond with maybe 150 or 250 people during a lifetime. So it would probably be good to use that as a metric in your life. Who are your close Dunbar number tribe people, and how are you staying in touch with them? How are you utilizing their delegatable resources? Something I think we could create these Dunbar tribes eventually at the neighborhood scale. The average block of neighborhood has about 150 people in it. Wouldn't it be amazing if those were all 150 people that were close to you? But we can also share resources. The average car stays parked 99% of the time, and yet there's a car, one per person, generally in cities. The same with tools. The average tool is not spends most of its time not being used. So there's a lot of room to create this geospatial intelligence for tool sharing and resource sharing and Dunbar tribe creation, and I think we're just beginning to move into a civilization like that. And we better hurry, because some people say in 5 or 10 years AI is going to revolutionize and disrupt society so much it might be kind of unrecognizable. So if you got a good idea, now's the time to execute on it. I'm feeling the pressure of my age. I'm 62, and this is how old my dad was when he died. So I'm on borrowed ancestor time at this point. So I'm kind of pulling out the stops and putting all the good ideas out there that I can. And part of running for vice president on the United States Transhumanist Party ticket is a big part of that. So thanks again for the chance to participate today. And happy Friday, everyone. And don't forget, Amateur Radio Field Day is next weekend, where you'll see your local ham clubs out there in the field running on remote power, creating these Dunbar communities of neighborocracies and neighborhoods.
Yeah, Mr. Rob, what's your concluding remarks for today's session?
Well, we were all over the map in today's session, but the let's go back to one of Tesla's ideas that I think was pretty interesting, which is the thought camera. The idea that you could take a picture of somebody and analyze their thoughts. Recently, they've been doing research using MRIs, and they can train. And this was done with the predecessor to ChatGPT. So who knows if you were to use ChatGPT 4 with this. But they were able to train the AI to use MRIs to read thoughts, and with the goal initially of trying to find a way for people that had lost the ability to speak again by mapping into their thoughts. And what they found was it worked. But you had to train it with the individual. Once it was trained with one individual, that training did not work with anybody else. If you tried to do it with somebody else, it was garbage. So a universal thought camera is still may not be possible, or it's certainly going to be off into our future, because apparently we don't all think the same way. But which shouldn't be a surprise. But the fact that this one Tesla idea actually came to fruition, the one we kind of hope doesn't come to fruition. He also created an earthquake machine. It was a machine that was designed to generate electricity concussively, and he almost leveled the building he was in using it. And then he told his staff, when the police showed up, just to tell them it must have been an earthquake. We don't have any idea what's going on, because it really did quite a bit of damage, both in the building and in the area. But just kind of some funny stories. But it just kind of showcases that even some of his wilder ideas in terms of the thought camera turned out to be viable. Just a matter of developing the technology to make it happen. Because in a way, an MRI is kind of a camera, and using AI, they were able to read the MRI charts to tell what people were thinking with a relatively high degree of accuracy once it was trained. And it only took a couple days to train the system. And as they say, that was with much older technology than we've got in the field right now. So interesting stuff. I expect we'll see other breakthroughs in the future that will somehow dovetail to some of the things that Tesla predicted as David and I look for those 20 missing trunks.
So David Smith, what's your concluding remarks for today?
Well, I've already started the search for the 20 trunks and have sent out a few inquiries, but yeah, I'd love to know what was in them too. My comments are really much is that we still have a lot to learn from Nikola Tesla, and from, as Daniel said, Marquis as well, and others. The ability to look at best practices, the ability to find mentors to help you, the ability to learn what others do well and where others made mistakes is one of the keys to us progressing forward in the world. Using group intelligence, much like what you do every day on this show, Sharif, is one of the very important things that we can learn from looking at people. And yeah, as was said, one of the things that Nikola Tesla should have done better was actually use more group intelligence, use more people. But I think he left an amazing legacy. And the fact that we can devote so many shows to his life is a testament to that legacy, Sharif. And thank you for letting me be part of it.
So Dan?
Well, I guess one thing I'm more and more interested in is how we can make America more like Norway. If I want to go off on a tangent here, but Norway has so many amazing things going for it. They have the most billionaires per capita. They have the most electric cars per capita. They have free college, free healthcare. They have a correctional system that is very humane. So some people might say make America great again. I might say make America like Norway for the first time. And being half Norwegian probably plays into that. But Tesla had a lot of pride for his country too. He was Serbia, and Serbians are making the news. There's athletes that are going to the top of their game that are from Serbia nowadays. Nikola Jokic, and so there's a lot of famous Nikolas from Serbia. but yeah, we can study these people. We learn. We shouldn't be afraid of failing. Failing is how you learn. That's how you gain experience. So not being afraid to fail is a huge part of becoming better. Continuous improvement should be the watchword for every endeavor. And yeah, this was kind of a fun session. Tesla is worth studying because he will lead you all over the domain of human creativity and experience and the mysteries of nature. So good luck with your conference there, Sharif. That's in Slovakia, which I guess is not too far from Serbia. I have to check my geography, but yeah, so you're probably going to get a lot of regional fandom for their local hero by such a conference. So good luck with all those endeavors. Thanks again.
Thank you everyone for joining today's session. I request all of our audience, please share our content with the government agency, corporation, and academy. Especially all of the speakers, you are also very influential in social media, so you also can share our content with your audience. And I just want to share some good news that World Talent Economy Forum, not only in Bangladesh, around Asia Pacific, we are getting huge cooperations, huge support from politicians, from university grant commissions, from different corporations, and through this process we are really helping a lot of human resources. Hopefully through this process we can develop new world. But definitely how the present situation is moving around, everybody is worried, everybody has financial challenge, everybody has electricity problem, housing problem, lot of challenges. So we should focus to solve the problem. And definitely the Western world, the big countries, you have to stop the war, especially Russia and Ukraine war, create a lot of problem. And climate change is real. We have heat wave, many people dying. So we have to be careful about climate change as well. So I request all of our people, please be responsible and behave properly. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.